Have you ever noticed that two people can look at exactly the same situation and come away with completely different conclusions? One person sees an insult. Another sees a misunderstanding. A third sees nothing unusual at all. How can the same facts produce such different reactions? The answer is that we don't react to reality as much as we react to our interpretation of reality, and sometimes the stories we create cause more problems than the events themselves. One of the most useful distinctions you can make is the difference between a fact and a story. The fact is what happened. The story is what we think it means. Imagine you receive a greeting card from a relative. The card simply says, "Thinking of you." One person reads it and thinks, "How nice, they were thinking about me." Another person thinks, "And that's all they wrote? They must not care very much." A third person thinks, "They're probably feeling guilty about something." A fourth person thinks, "They want something from me." Same card, same words, different interpretations. Where did all those extra meanings come from? None of them were actually written in the card. Our brains are storytelling machines. When information is incomplete, the brain automatically fills in the gaps. Most of the time, we don't even notice it happening. We think we're observing reality when we're actually observing our interpretation of reality. Consider what happened with the greeting card. The fact is that someone sent a card saying they were thinking of you. Everything else is speculation. Maybe they care deeply. Maybe they were in a hurry. Maybe they struggled to find the right words. Maybe they thought the gesture mattered more than a long message. Maybe they simply wanted you to know they remembered you. The same facts can support many different explanations, but people often make a strange mistake. They assume the explanation that feels strongest must be the correct one, especially if it's negative. Part of the reason is that humans evolved to pay attention to possible threats. A rustling bush might contain a predator. Missing a threat could be costly, so our brains became very good at spotting potential danger. The problem is that modern life is full of ambiguity. A delayed response becomes rejection. A neutral comment becomes criticism. A short greeting card becomes evidence of hidden motives. Possibility becomes proof. Now consider the cost. You receive the card. You assume the sender is being passive-aggressive. Now you're upset. Your next interaction becomes defensive. They notice, they're confused, the relationship gets worse, and the original assumption may have been completely wrong. The damage came from the story, not the facts. So here's a different approach. When multiple explanations fit the facts, don't automatically choose the most negative one, not because the positive explanation is guaranteed to be true, but because the negative explanation isn't guaranteed to be true either. Instead, ask yourself a simple question. What else could explain this? That one question changes everything. Instead of one story, you suddenly have several possibilities, and certainty begins to disappear. That's usually a good thing, because certainty without evidence is often just imagination wearing a disguise. Giving someone the benefit of the doubt is not being naive. It's recognizing uncertainty. If you don't know why someone did something, then you don't know. And if several explanations fit the evidence equally well, there is no logical reason to automatically choose the one that makes you angry. In fact, there are good reasons not to. A more generous interpretation often produces better conversations, better relationships, and less stress. And if new evidence appears later, you can always update your beliefs. Try this simple reframe. Instead of asking, "What did they really mean?" ask, "What evidence do I actually have?" Then ask, "What are 3 other explanations?" You'll often discover that your certainty came from assumptions rather than facts. Most people move directly from observation to emotion, but there is a hidden step in the middle, interpretation. Once you notice that step, you gain a choice. You can keep the original story, or you can choose a different one, and sometimes the most honest answer is simply this: "I don't know what they meant, The next time you're tempted to read between the lines, remember that there may not be anything written there at all. What you find may say more about your assumptions than about the other person. And that's a simple system worth remembering.